Welcome back to Opinion Journal. I'm Mary Kissel. There's a new immigration reform proposal, sort of, and it's not coming from the halls of the Senate. It's coming from a labor union and big business. Political Diary editor, editorial board member, and author of Let Them In, Jason Riley is here. Jason, I'm going to put a quote up on the screen of this deal between the AFL-CIO and the Chamber of Commerce. Here's the first principle, and I'll read it. First, American workers should have a first crack at available jobs. To that end, business and labor are committed to improving the way that information about job openings in lesser skilled occupations reaches the maximum number of workers, particularly those in disadvantaged communities. Jason, is this a good deal? What does this say?
And the sun sets in the west, and water is wet, and we all believe in gravity. They put out a statement of agreed principles, and because it was really a dodge. They could not agree on why they met in the first place, which was to come up with principles for admitting low-skill workers in a guest worker program, which is the key to getting immigration reform right. Right now, a lot of the focus in the media is on what to do with the 11, 12 million undocumented people already here. But a bigger piece of the puzzle is what to do about the future flow of workers, what to do about letting people in to work in our labor markets once our economy expands and the jobs come back. And so that's what labor,
real fix.
That's what labor and the Chamber of Commerce got together to do, and they couldn't come up with a plan. And the reason they couldn't is because labor continues to oppose a guest worker program,
now, Jason,
essentially for low-skilled workers.
I really want to dive into this because if you let more workers in, particularly low-income, maybe unskilled workers, wouldn't they be more likely to join a union?
They may eventually, but initially they would serve as competition to union labor. They could drive down wages and so forth. And so unions reflexively have opposed them in the past, and they continue to do so. Now, in the statement of principles, it says we agree that we need a system in place, and that's considered a huge concession on the part of labor.
That's the huge concession?
Well, in fact, they would burden this guest worker program or set it up in such a way that it would essentially let them control the flow of workers. So what labor is calling for is a commission or some sort of bureaucracy that would do some central planning. Right. It would identify labor shortages in the U.S. economy, Mary, and then determine the number of foreign workers that were allowed to come in to the country. So, of course, labor would have a vested interest in keeping as few foreign workers from coming in as possible, and they would have some control over this commission via the politicians that they control today.
Yeah, well, and it isn't the politicians we're focusing on. It's these two unelected, faceless groups that are doing the deal. But Jason, what is this? What does this tell you about the White House leak last weekend? Does this set of principles shed light on why
that's a good point. I think what it tells us is that the leak was more likely than not intentional, and that's because the White House realized that these talks weren't going anywhere, and it leaked a plan that took the side of the unions in an effort to put pressure on the chamber. And so we now know that it had that well, it didn't work in terms of the chamber not caving, but it also let the chamber know that labor had the blessing. Their stubbornness on this guest worker program had the blessing of the White House. Everyone knew this wasn't going anywhere. So now they're going to toss it back to Congress, and we'll see what happens.
Jason, if the White House is really that tied to the AFL-CIO, tell me, has the president ever bucked the AFL-CIO? We got less than 20 seconds.
Well, they would probably say they have pushed back against unions on education, calling for charter schools and so forth, which unions don't like because much of the labor in charter schools is not unionized. But on balance, I think Obama's been a pretty good friend of big labor.
So clouds are forming over immigration reform. Editorial board member Jason Riley, thank you so much for being with us.